My name is Eric Connor. I am not Irish, but that's okay. Today we're all happy. And it's a real pleasure to announce tonight's guest. But first, yes, I'm making you wait. You're making you wait. I'm dragging a little, but then I'll rush. Actually, I kind of promised I wouldn't do a rushing and dragging joke, because I feel like Mr. Simmons is going to be hearing that for the next 50 years. But he's earned it, because he made that line a keeper. And that's what he's been doing for 30 years. I could be up here and literally spend the whole time talking about Whiplash, the fury he brought to the role, and then those eerie silences. The fact that he won the Oscar for this, deservedly. And when you watch his first scene, you could already see them engraving his name on that statue. He's that amazing. But for 30 years and 150 some odd projects, he's always been amazing. He's exactly what a writer wants when an actor does their role. Someone who brings life to the part, be it a small role or a lead. The sense that the character's been there long before page one. On stage, when he was in the original cast of Neil Simon's Laughter on the 23rd Floor. Or for those of you who remember the show Oz, that groundbreaking drama, where he played the Aryan leader, possibly the scariest role I've ever seen, and the reason I don't even download music at this point. My absolute worst fear, him in Oz. But on the flip of that, him in Juno. His performance in Juno, and of all the wonderful moments in that, possibly the best scene, him telling his daughter, you got to find someone who loves you for being you. Or let's talk about Spider-Man, that little micro-budget indie film. As much as any actor in the Marvel Universe, what he was able to do as J. Jonah Jameson, where he made the comic, the old cartoon, come to beautiful life on screen. But he's been doing that with his voice, too. Look at his credits. He's been doing countless cartoons. He's even an M&M. But we can all agree, probably the best M&M of all of them. And the work he's done on Law & Order, The Closer. Literally, I could spend the whole time just reading his bio. But I don't think we have 5 hours to be here. And of course, it all culminated with this performance. And how many more projects we get to see him in. Kong, Skull Island, Terminator this summer. And as you saw tonight, he can really give an android a run for its money and toughness. But we also know he's a softie. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to welcome a wonderful actor, J.K. Simmons.
Thank you.
So between us, did you actually act in it, or you just had fun playing yourself?
Yeah, it was a version of myself.
So I read someplace that you started by studying music and composing. Yeah. Did that help you get the part? Because it was so specific.
No, actually, it was one of the many either happy coincidences or pieces of fate, kismet. When Damien and I first met, after I'd read the script and was dying to do it, one of the first things he said to me was, I don't want you to be too concerned about the musical aspects and the conducting, and don't let that be intimidating to you, because we can, we'll have a technical advisor who can show you the basics, and we can fake it, we can use body doubles, and, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I got a degree in music from...
Just so happened.
I thought I was going to be Leonard Bernstein when I grew up, and I took a few left turns, and there we are.
Wow.
He didn't know that Miles Teller had been drumming since he was 15 years old either, and he wrote it for Miles. Yeah. It was all meant to be. I mean, it was.
Wow. Because I thought that I saw some interview with Miles saying that he actually didn't do drum, but he did some.
He lies
trumpet.
a lot.
I see. That's why I got along. That's why good you were tough to him.
Yes. Yeah. No, he started on the sax, actually. He played sax when he was even younger, but he took up the drums at 15.
Right. So how did you transition from the music man to playing dramatic
Well,
role?
the Music Man was actually one of them. I started doing, I was doing opera. I was singing. I was doing conducting, composing, singing. I was doing operas and operetta, and segue. I really, I made my living, well.
I saw that, you started to get a lot of accolades, starting from 2008 or something, and that took about 20 years or something. Do you think that it takes that long to be good?
I think it varies a lot. I know that for me, I look back and it almost seems like I had a plan, but I just kept, putting one foot in front of the other and doing what I really enjoyed doing. And unfortunately, when I was, scraping by and barely making ends meet, I didn't have a wife and kids and any responsibilities, and all I had to do
Or
was
the above average kids?
no above average children, no children of any kind. Yeah, I mean, in my case, the level of whatever success, acclaim, attention that I've been receiving, more and more the last I don't know, decade or so, has if that had happened to me when I was 25 years old, I would not have been prepared creatively, personally, in any way.
So what happened in the days when you don't get an award? Do you just take the garbage and you're happy with, you okay with
Well,
that?
you know what? I've been driving my agent crazy for years because I've always been picky about, and it doesn't always show. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't some clunkers in my past, but I mean, even when I was from Hunger, I was, I only wanted to do things that were interesting to me, and the few times that I took a job just to have a job, and pay the rent, were usually the jobs that I found unfulfilling and even just irritating and annoying. It was like I'd rather be back at Joe Allen waiting tables, and waiting on.
Jodie Foster told me the same thing.
Yeah.
She said that she did a couple of those things, and then she realized it's more damaging and worse than if you haven't done them.
Yeah.
And she decided she's never going to do that again.
Yeah, it can be, and that's a good thing to remind yourself of from time to time, And I mean, right now I'm in a position where obviously I'm, a very popular guy all of a sudden, and lots of offers, and big movies and little movies, and I'm trying to make the same choices for all the same reasons,
But I noticed that, you work with some directors and they kept working with you, whether Sam Raimi or Jason. Obviously, the years of, working it and, crafting it kind of paid off. And people saw that, somebody is there who, is ready. When Steven Spielberg was here, and then somebody in acting said to them, "What do you expect from an actor?" And they said, knowing their line, being on time, and because some people don't even do that.
Well, no, and believe me, that's a big part of it. I mean, I think one of the reasons that I have continued to work all the way, whether I was doing regional theater in the 70s and 80s or Broadway or what I'm doing now, it was just showing up, being on time, and being able to do my job, whether I was the best actor in the world or not. I tried and I did my best, and I wasn't a pain in the ass, and that goes a long way.
Yeah. What do you think of this kind of teaching? Whether it's in music, whether it's football coaching, whether it's Tiger Mom,
Well,
Did they produce the Charlie Parkers or?
Football coaching is certainly the closest I ever came to encountering a guy like that. And I mean, when I was coaching little kids.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't act this. He just.
No, I'm talking about when I was in high school. My personal take on it, and one of the things that I loved about the movie and that I loved about the screenplay, and that was the second thing that Damien and I talked about when we sat down and had lunch, was the ambiguity of the message, because there is no message. It's a story, and people come away with different takes from it. And I mean, I've heard orchestra conductors, friends of mine who are orchestra conductors, a couple of whom. Well, two of them had the exact opposite impression of the film. One of them was like, "I'm so glad to see a movie that tells us we can't cater to this young generation, and we have to beat this into
Yes.
people, and this generation is coddled and overpraised,
Yes.
and they need, this is how you really make achieve greatness." And then another orchestra conductor who said, "I'm so glad to see a film that shows that this kind of abusive, horrible, humiliating behavior has no place in creative arts or life in general." And I mean, the exact
Yeah.
opposite message, because because that ambiguity exists, because it's a story about real people who are not, black and white. Me personally, my kids would not Terrence Fletcher and I would have a meeting. My kid would not be in his band.
So yeah, I want to hear more about those above average kids of yours. I really do.
Well,
How old are they?
They're 16 and 13, and both.
They already stopped calling home?
No. I wasn't talking to them. I was talking to, well, I don't like a billion people apparently. They're both drummers. Yeah. My son, they both play multiple instruments, but my son plays mostly orchestral percussion, and my daughter plays the drum kit in a little girl band with the two of her pals, and they both play guitar and bass and piano, and a little of this and that. We got a marimba in the music room, and all kinds of fun stuff.
So did they come to the Oscars? How come we didn't come
They did,
to them?
yeah. Well, they were in the non-camera seats, although apparently they were sitting behind somebody who was nominated for something, and so that you could sort of see them in one shot at some point during the telecast.
But I'll just tell you one thing, and then we should open up to the student, because I was like, you're not famous for this whole thing about calling home and whatnot. I went to see Dame Edna this Sunday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And she picked up at one point some 70-year-old woman and some young man who's like maybe 30, and she decided she's going to marry them on stage. And, the silliness that she does. And finally, after she decided they're married, she said, "Can we call you relatives?" And the guy says, "No, I don't have any friends." So she goes and turns to the old lady, and she said, "Well, your husband is here. Who can I call? Do you have children?" She says, "Yes, I have a daughter." And she said, "What's her number? Let's call her." And the woman says, "My daughter told me not to call her, just to text her." So of course, Dame Edna calls the daughter and starting to make a big thing out of her mom, and the daughter can't believe that Dame Edna is calling her, and suddenly her mother is a hero to her. And at the end, he said, "Call your mother." Anyway, let's open up to the student, because, yeah.
Hi. Hi.
So, throughout all the years of career you've had, what would you say has been your biggest struggle?
I wouldn't use the word struggle. I alluded earlier to, there were many years when I was barely paying the rent, but I loved that time. I had a great time doing, non-equity summer stock at first, where I first really fell in love with what I do. And, there were times, there were lean years, and there were times when I went a while between jobs, between acting jobs. But I don't know, struggle. I think there are so many people on this planet whose struggles are, for real, that I wouldn't use that word. I've loved my whole journey every step of the way.
Thank you.
if you could go back and tell yourself, your younger self, one thing that would have made your breaking into this industry that much easier, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to steal a line from Mark Ruffalo here. Wonderful actor, obviously, and a wonderful guy who a similar question was asked of him, and he said, "You're going to be okay. You know, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just keep going. You know, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you're going to be okay."
Thank you.
Hi. What's one of the greatest lessons you've learned throughout your career?
Be on time. You know, my first experience really doing theater outside of a couple things in school was at a little summer theater in Montana, the Big Fork Summer Playhouse, and everybody worked their butts off the first 6 or 7 weeks of the summer. Well, it actually wasn't summer stock; it was summer rep. So we would the first 6 weeks or so we're rehearsing a play, and then we open it, then we rehearse another play, musicals mostly, 3/4 musicals, rehearse another one, open it, add it into the rep, and then you're doing 2 shows at night, rehearsing a 3rd show during the day, and we're all pounding nails or sewing costumes or doing this or that or the other thing, and working hard and being a team and collaborating, and there was no room for divas, and therefore there were no divas, and I think that's the world I like to work in.
Congratulations on all your amazing achievements, Mr. Simmons. My question is, how do you deal with such an intense character like Fletcher, who has such passion for music and wants to drive these kids to be amazing performers? How do you not take that home with you?
That was a process for me, learning to not take it home with me. There was a reference to Oz earlier. Which was my first, one of my very early on-camera things, and you'll be pleased to know a significant departure from my actual self. And a lot of us, it was a lot of theater guys really on that show, and a lot of us kind of had trouble shaking that off at the end of the day. I'm literally wearing my swastika tattoo, home on, which my wife was really not pleased with. She was at the time, by the way, she was doing Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. And I was playing the head of the Aryan Brotherhood during the day. In my case, it was really just, it's just been part of the journey is just been learning how to put it on and also how to just shake it off at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, in this case, Miles and I, as soon as Damien said cut, we just started dicking around and acting like knuckleheads and having fun, and that was just the vibe that we kind of settled into. So I've gotten to a point now where if I'm working with actors who find it necessary, important to stay in it, or then that's great. I can do that too, but. I guess I'm not answering the question other than to say, over the years, it's just an ability that I developed, not taking it home.
Do you sing a little, like, to get yourself?
I was about an hour ago. I was singing. I have to sing a Dolly Parton song in this movie I'm doing this starting soon. So I'm sitting at home, strumming my C, F, and G.
Can you sing for us?
No. You got to go see the movie.
Hey there. I'm curious, what was the single best directing moment that came from Damien, in your opinion?
I don't know. I can't pick one. A young writer-director, Jason Reitman, sent me the script. Obviously, since it came from him, I expected it to be good. I read the script. It was one of the best 4 or 5 things I've ever read in my life.
The short or the feature?
Both.
Okay.
Because he conceived it as a feature, first of all, wrote it as a feature, and then distilled the short from that in order to, get some attention and get some money. But I'm digressing, and there are like 90 people in line. So I think oftentimes with young directors, they feel the need, and there was a tiny bit of this with Damien when we did the short, which was 15 months before we did the feature. They kind of have their ideas of how they're going to motivate their actors, or how they're going to explain something to their actors, or how they're going to ask for an adjustment from their actors. And you're young and you're smart and you're nervous, and you want to establish some credibility. And young directors sometimes tend to say stuff that they don't. That's like, dude, I just did that, or just because they sort of feel the need to say something. And what Damien learned very quickly was not to do that, and was when to give a little adjustment, when to say, give a perspective or something that he was looking for. But I think oftentimes what directors need to do, assuming that you have the vocabulary and the not even the experience, the knowledge, to the education to be able to communicate with an actor, I think the best thing you can do sometimes is just say, let's try it again.
Sweet. Thank you, sir.
He said in an interview, really, that he kind of, with you especially, he just let you go and just adjusted a little here and a little there.
Yeah, I mean, I really think, and again, I'll use Reitman as an example. You do so much of your work as a director of actors in your casting. You cast the right people,
yes.
then you don't right. have to direct them all the time to get right. the performance out of them.
Right.
Good evening.
Hey.
So, for such a dark, complicated mentor character like Fletcher, where did you go looking for inspiration?
Nowhere other than the page. Honestly, it was such a complete, thorough, mature, deep, intelligent piece of writing, passionate. I never went anywhere other than the guy that I felt Damien wrote. Wow. Was all there.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hey.
Congrats on your win. Your speech was very heartwarming. I just have a question. How did you get involved with the short before the feature?
Well, they sent me the script. Jason and Helen, his producing partner, had just come on board as producers along with some other people, and the two of them had suggested me to Damien as a guy to play this part. He was already writing it with Miles Teller in mind, but Miles was too much of a big cheese to do the short, so another actor played the part in the short film, and Damien and I sat down and had that lunch, and when I signed on to do it, it was a 3-day short for $11, and it was just a brilliant piece of work and something I wanted to do. So it was 15 months later that they finally got everything together, and it turned into obviously there was never any expectation that it would turn into what it's turned into in terms of the public acclaim, but I knew the minute I read it that it was something that I really wanted to be a part of.
Thank you. My mom loved you in Juno, by the way.
Excellent. Thank you. Call her.
Who paid for the lunch? No.
You know what? I probably did, actually. I mean, obviously, usually in that situation, the director's going to have a budget from the studio to buy lunch, but I think I bought it.
Yeah, I'm curious about when you say the director and you had lunch. Did you specifically at the lunch talk about the role? Did you talk about anything else?
Yeah, we talked about. He talked about the musical thing, and then we talked about the story and about and me sort of just ascertaining or confirming for myself that Damien didn't want to, come down firmly on one side of this sort of debate, because the movie I wanted to make, which is exactly what he wrote, and we totally concurred on it, was was the movie that says, you know, this is a slice of what could be reality, and how does it affect you, you know. Yeah, really, other than that, yeah, I mean, it was a relatively quick. I mean, 5 minutes into it, we both knew that we were going to be doing it together, and again, like I said, at that point, all we knew we were doing was a 3-day short film,
Right.
and you know, fingers crossed it would lead to something.
Yeah. Great.
Hello, very pleased to meet you. I'm not going to play your character, Terrence Fletcher, and say that you did a good job, because you didn't do a good job. You did an amazing job. And I imagine that throughout your career, right, the line from the movie, Charlie would never be discouraged, right? I imagine throughout your career, you got discouragement from people and you got encouragement from people, right? Who were these people, and who helped more, the people who discouraged you or the people who encouraged you?
Yes, it is a good question. I think, in my personal experience, I respond much better to encouragement. I think.
Certainly, the Oscar is the very good encouragement. Yes.
Well, it's a nice trophy. It's never been. It honestly never crossed my mind until last May, when somebody at Sony Pictures said, "By the way, you're going to win an Oscar for this," and I, you know. What was the question I was actually answering? Oh, discouragement or encouragement. I think both can work, both can be effective, and that's one of the things that I think the story of the movie tells. In my personal case, encouragement was much more productive and much more helpful.
Who encouraged you?
College professors, actors, more experienced actors, directors. I was
Your
so
parents?
lucky to work. My parents always encouraged all of us to do. My brother and sister, myself, to do whatever we felt like doing, whether it was, you know, playing baseball or you know, or being a musician or being an actor.
Thank you very much. You're
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your Oscar win. My brother doesn't stop talking about Whiplash. My question is, was there a certain point or a certain aspect of the film that was a significant difference from anything else than any other project that you have ever done?
Well, really, the main thing that jumps to mind is the level of us just sort of being absorbed in the music. I mean, I'd done other films with musical aspect to them, but this was like in the same way that I get excited about doing a cowboy movie or a baseball movie, you know, because those are sort of, you know, little boy fantasies. This was a real fantasy fulfillment for me too, because having studied music, I was never. I don't deign to call myself a musician. You know, I studied. I have a background in music. I get music. I understand music. I was reading the scores. I was conducting. I was playing the little piano ditty. But just being in that room, playing that great music, leading these guys, and by the way, all the musicians, not all, with 2 or 3 or 4 exceptions in all of the bands, everybody that you saw playing in that movie was playing. And when we were shooting those scenes, we were playing live and making music, and the rooms were just jumping. It was crazy. And it's sweetened to the mix, obviously, but just the immersion in the music was the biggest treat for me.
Thank you.
And slapping Miles.
Hi. You said you didn't go looking for inspiration any further than the character that was written already on the paper. But I'm wondering if you created like a backstory for the character, like maybe you use a method like that, like because whenever I hear of the backstory of the character, I wonder if you created one for it to play.
There was a little. There were hints of a backstory for the character in the script, and actually in some things that we shot. which I think might be on the DVD. I don't know. There was we spent half a day of our 19 days shooting stuff in my apartment, me alone in my apartment, and it sort of gave you some hints about the backstory, including seeing a picture of a mother and daughter, or a woman and child, and I had sort of spent not a lot of time and not going into depth, and it's not something that I have in the past at times, but not something that I, write down or not something that I usually spend a lot of time on. But I did, create a sort of an arc for what brought him to where he is when we meet him, and why he is the obsessive guy that he is.
Right. Thank you.
And miserable guy that he is.
Mr. Simmons or Mr. Fletcher, thanks for joining us today. It's an honor. So, out of all the characters you've played, because and I want to ask which one of your favorite ones, because you and I both know that not a lot of them are not quite your tempo.
Yeah. True enough. Well, this is again. I can't. I don't know that I can pick one. Of the handful of my favorites, Terrence Fletcher is up there. Some of the others are things that I did that were seen by hundreds of people. When I was doing regional theater or Broadway, or I had a chance to play the Colonel in the play of A Few Good Men in 1990. That ranks up there as an all-time great. Parola's in All's Well That Ends Well was a great one. Juno, Spider-Man. But Terrence Fletcher is definitely towards the top. You know what? There's a couple of little movies that didn't get seen, which is always my fear going into something like Whiplash. I've done a lot of little indie films, and I don't think any of them are as complete a piece of work as Whiplash. But many of them are very good and just never got seen. They went to Sundance maybe, or here or there, and they just petered out. But two of them that I'm a big fan of are a movie called The Music Never Stopped, which is a great script that was not completely realized, and then a little movie called Off the Map. So when you're sitting around thinking about what to rent on Netflix, check those out.
Yeah, because it's actually a coincidence, because I found out that you were joining us today the same day I watched Whiplash for the first time, and please don't hit Spidey.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm going to steal a question from James Lipton and just ask you, if you weren't an actor, what other option would you go into?
Do I wish I had been, or would I do now at my advanced age? Because what I wish I had been was the center fielder for the Detroit Tigers. But so I guess that would make me a coach at this point in my life.
Hi, my question is, what is the first thing you do when you get a new script?
We'll read it. Well, and you know what? That's an interesting question, because it's difficult. I'm busy. I mean, I got kids, I got a wife, I'm trying to balance having a life and having a career, and whether it's a time like now when I'm being inundated with scripts, or just a more relaxed time in my life. The first thing to do that I'm not always able to do is to really devote your time and attention to it. And I think in this in this world where we see 1-year-olds staring at iPads at dinner so mom and dad can talk, it's difficult to focus on one task, and I don't do that as well as I wish I did oftentimes. So I really just just really focus, take the time that you need to really focus on reading the script, and please God, don't do bullshit my part, you know.
Hello. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm still shaken by your performance. And my question was, in your experience, what do you think it's a limit in rehearsing a scene or rehearsing a role in terms of preparation? Do you think there's a moment in which it can become stalled due to over-rehearsing it?
I've done a complete 180 from being a guy who did theater for almost 20 years. The first time I was on a set was soap operas don't count. I did a couple of day players on soaps. It was a TV movie called Popeye Doyle, and then it was a few years later that I did a movie called, my first feature was a little part in a movie called The Ref, yes. And which was a fun little movie. And they called me to set for rehearsal for my first sort of big scene. Go to the set after waiting around, of course, for 2 hours, which you're not used to when you're a theater actor, and we go, rehearse, and they go, okay, you knock on the door, he comes to the door, you stand here, blah 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 blah. Okay, rehearsal's over. Now we're going to light it, and we'll see you in an hour. And I was in shock. I was like, when are we going to rehearse? I mean, we didn't rehearse. We blocked, And I felt horribly underprepared. I mean, I'd learned my lines. I did my thing, but I was used to theater where you go over it and over and over and over and over. And it's a different kind of more sedate, leisurely process of exploring the characters. Since then, I've really very much, in 20 years gotten to the point where I prefer as little rehearsal as possible. I like to work with actors who are just on their toes and spontaneous, and people who can listen. It's so important and so difficult, and God knows I couldn't do it for many, many, many years as an actor. To just be there and actually be able to listen to the other person and respond to the other person, whether you're improvising or saying, speaking Shakespeare exactly as it is on the page, the ability to listen. I'm getting off on a tangent now. Is devoutly to be wished.
Since your portrayal of J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies, you became the voice of the character in the cartoon, and the character has been transformed in the cartoon and the comics to be more like your performance. So my question is, how do you feel as an actor when you know that you had such an influence on such a strongly established character?
Well, that's never been put to me in that way. I always felt like, doing the cartoons is just fun. And a way to sort of stay in touch with that guy that I got to be with Sam on all those three movies. I really felt in obviously a different style than Whiplash, but like my job as J. Jonah Jameson was to bring that guy off the pages of the comic book, and I think, and this is the way the films were directed and written and acted, was that those scenes in the Daily Bugle were really the most sort of comic booky scenes of the movie, the most sort of and the most sort of almost anachronistic Preston Sturges kind of vibe to them, which was my first take on it, and which Sam completely concurred with. So I have no idea what question you just asked me, but.
Because they changed the character to be more like the way you portrayed it.
Oh, yeah. I'm completely unaware of that until you just said it. I mean, I think, yeah, Sam gave us all, and in my case, it was that was a great blessing. He I'd done 2 movies with him before the Spider-Man movies, and he and I developed a rapport and a mutual trust where he gave me the freedom to create. I guess that freedom, has come back in the cartoon series, and without really being aware of it, I guess I've whatever sort of made it my own, more within the cartoons, and that's cool. That's fun.
Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you so much. That was magical, and it touched me in a way that I've never been touched before, and changed my life forever, seriously.
Awesome.
I'd like to know, what advice would you give to someone who wants to seriously pursue music and acting?
Well, there's no reason not to. It would be the first piece of advice. I mean, if you're passionate about both, you need to be doing both. And if you don't, need to be doing this, then you should really be doing something else. But I mean, practically speaking, I have no advice to offer whatsoever because I'm a dinosaur. But personally speaking, just keep showing up. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and keep developing. And all of you here are, at some stage or another, I think, of doing this. Develop a foundation. Learn the fundamentals. Which is something that I assume you have embarked on long ago, but it's something you should never let go of. As a musician or an actor.
Thank you so much.
Well, my question is regarding Fletcher. When you got the script for the short film, you conceived this perception of the character. I'm wondering how your perception, your process evolved or changed into what you brought to the feature film.
Well, I got both scripts at the same time, so I was able to read the feature before we did the short. Again, I don't want to sound too mystical, but I mean, it was just great writing. Leaps off the page, and again, whether it's Shakespeare or whatever, Arthur Miller, or Damien Chazelle in this case, it was just such a brilliant and complete and thorough piece of writing, and that's great. And I've read other things, maybe not as great, but I've read a lot of scripts that I've thought this is really, really good, but it just doesn't connect. And if there's nothing organic going on, I sort of, I've learned how to do what I do for a living, and I can make things work, I can, and sometimes your job is to make writing that's not all that good work. But when you have the combination of a piece of writing where every syllable is just perfection, and it's a character that you oddly connect to, it was just whatever, kismet. I mean, it was, again, I have no idea if I answered this guy's question.
Good evening, it's an honor to meet you. I'm curious about your relationship with the director. I know that a lot of the inspiration to work with him came from reading the script and it leaped off the page, like you said. But I'm also curious about how you formed, confidence for each other and to work with each other, if it came from more than just the inspiration of the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the leap of faith, because he's young. He was 26 when we met. And very inexperienced, film school, and I had no idea, about him as a director, and I like, I said that thing earlier about, one of the things that he did best was like, shut up and get out of the way, but I really do, I really, really, really like collaborating with a director and a dialogue with a director and being directed, having a director who knows what he wants, A, and knows how to get that across, B, and knows how to get that across to a wide variety of kinds of actors, So I mean, a director is a communicator. By far the most important skill a director has as a human being, is just the ability to communicate with a vast range of people. And in Damien's case, it was just a real leap of faith, and I saw such growth with in between the time we did the short and the feature, and not just in knowing when to back off, but just in it's one of those things you can't really know until you do it. I mean, you can't swim until you're in the pool, and you learn. You get as fundamentally sound as you can. You watch, you learn, you study, and then you do. And as you do, you just try to keep your wits about you and keep your ears open and communicate.
Thank you very much.
When you first got the pilot script for The Closer, did you know it was going to last as long as it did, or were you expecting it to be maybe 1 or 2 seasons?
I honestly, I think I can say this without being disingenuous or full of shit, but I don't think about results, and certainly about commercial results or audience acceptance of something when I read anything. I had done a show with the same writer, James Duff, the previous year, a show called The DA, which was short-lived, 4 episodes, and was, just knew that he was a guy who knew how to write, really interesting plots and believable characters and knew how to, meld those into a, procedural cop show. I mean, TNT was, relatively new at doing that at the time. So as far as the business, the commercial aspect of it, I just thought, James wrote it. It's a great character, and he actually wrote it for me, based on our experience the year before. And as a matter of fact, when he called me about it, he said that he was sort of laid out the basic idea of the show and said, and I've written a part for you. Would you like to read it? And I said, well, I don't need to read it because it's you, and I know I want to do it. So sign me up, first of all, and then send me the script, and let's see what happens. And 7 years, and I mean it was a great ride, and it was awesome too because I worked like 2 days a week on that show. So I coached my kids' baseball team for 6 years and never missed a practice because it was a part-time job, which was awesome.
Hi. Hi. So you mentioned that you guys actually played the music live as you were shooting, right? So my question is, there's a couple scenes where you tell them that they're not in your tempo. So in those scenes, were they actually not in your tempo, and could you tell?
It was well. First of all, I said something before. I mean, I'm like nowhere near the musician of Terrence Fletcher or of most of the guys that were in that room with me. The pieces, the things. The first scene, Andrew's first day in studio band, with, that ends up with the chair throwing and the screaming and the slapping and all that stuff. That was, Miles doing his best to not quite do his best, and me just, and I said, the Damien script was super specific and so thorough and so good, but he also. I mean, scenes like that, we just went, I mean, he would play, and if he was rushing a little bit, I would say you're rushing, and if he, and when he came in too soon a couple times, that was happening.
But you did know.
A lot of that wasn't scripted, so yeah. But I mean, also it also is cut together by Tom Cross and Damien Chazelle, both of whom, both of whom are musicians and knew what they were doing. So that, you know, and it's like with the drum solo at the end too. You know, I mean, there was a lot of that magic happened in the editing room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the 100th time, congratulations and thank you so much for coming. There's a beat on Fletcher's character that I just thought that it was incredibly important, and it was when he was talking to the students about the death of the former student, and it's an oxymoron for me, and I think that that's what makes a character human, when they're oxymorons. Was there ever a talk with Damien about portraying that oxymoron differently? Not showing maybe Fletcher so weak, but rather keeping that rough going on?
No, I don't think there was. I think, as happened with so much of the movie, you know, Damien put it on paper, Damien set up how to shoot it, and largely trusted Miles and myself and Paul and Melissa and Nate and, you know, all the actors with how to bring it to life, and then which is just a lovely way to work, and especially when you don't have time. You know, 19 days was crazy, and for him to be so prepared and still allow us the time to just bring what we brought. You know, instead of saying, okay, you know, we got 18 minutes to knock out this shot. Here's what I need it to be. Boom, 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 boom. You know, this is the progression or whatever. You know, he would let us bring what we brought, and if he felt the need to adjust, then he would come in and make an adjustment, maybe a tiny one, maybe a bigger one. In that case, in my memory, which is not as good as it used to be, and it was never great, I think the way I read the scene and the way the scene came out of me was what he was looking for. And I think I would use the word contradiction rather than oxymoron. You know, I mean, as with most people, the character, you know, is a contradiction of himself at times, and I think vulnerability rather than weakness. Certainly, weakness would not be a word that would be in Fletcher's.
Yeah, I'm sorry. ESL speaker here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I'm just trying to refine that, you know, for myself in terms of my response.
No, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Was it even genuine? I guess it was.
Well, and that's an interesting question, because, you know, then we learn later, you know, more about it. But as far as I was playing it, it was completely genuine. I mean, despite the fact that I wasn't telling the whole truth,
right?
I was telling the truth that mattered.
Of your
own
truth.
I mean, he was, he was a mentor. Or, I mean, he was a protege and sort of the closest. And there was a scene previous where we really talked about that character, Sean Clark, who Sean Casey used to play first base for the Tigers. As a matter of fact, I tried to get Damien to change the name because I was like, dude, you know, he's like a major league all-star, Sean Casey. And he went, oh, no.
Hi. I don't know. Thank you so much for such a lively, relatable role. Character. Oh my god. I'm sorry. So my question is, like, on set for like a character like so emotional like Fletcher, what is like the like director's choice or like your own choice to help you to prepare before taping of that really explosive scene?
There was very little in the way of sort of, you know, ramping up or emotional preparing, you know, in my case, in this role, and you just generally, again, I've been doing this a long time, and just gotten some facility with being able to, you know, pick it up and put it down, and like I said, shake off a roll at the end of the day and go home, or shake off a roll in between takes and just, you know, goof around with Miles.
But is it like this with other roles, or it was just this specifically that you felt so connected to it in a way that you can come come in and
No,
come
there,
out.
there are. Well, it's more the case in general for me now. And again, I totally respect actors who you know
Stay in the
who
room.
stay there, and
Yes.
if you want to stay there, I'll stay there with you. You know, I'm happy to do that. But or I'll whatever, just respect it and give you your space. You know, and that's, to me, that's an important part of the whole collaboration and the whole just being a teammate. You know, being, you know, hopefully we all have the same goal in mind, which is you know, to tell the story. And again, I totally digress. Did I answer his question?
So, in a way, but it's interesting because I think they probably struggle with the fact that it seems so easy for you, and they're just in the stages where they're just trying to understand how you get into the whole thing. Do you think you were like them when you started out,
Oh.
or you always had that facility?
No. I definitely did not have that. In fact, it was so like embarrassingly the other way. One of my first things at the Big Fork Summer Playhouse in Montana, I played the lead in Brigadoon, mostly because I could sing, not because I was a brilliant actor. And at the end of the first act, it's this real cliffhanger of the whole, mystical village of Brigadoon is, could be doomed, and my love for Fiona could be doomed, and it's this very, and in our production it ended with this sort of striving moment behind the scrim and blackout and intermission, and everybody goes and has an orange soda, and I would spend the entire intermission lying on my back behind the scrim, like staying in that moment for 20 minutes and smoking a cigarette, because I was learning how to do this, because I was, reading An Actor Prepares, because I was, I knew that I wanted to inhabit this character and stay in the moment and all that, and I was learning how to do it. And I think if I hadn't gone through that level of commitment as sort of naive and naive as it was, I think it was an important process for me to go through. And I don't take it any less seriously, and I hope that I don't work less hard at it. I just work more effectively at it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi. So something I believe is remarkable about you is how you manage transitions. So my question is, when you have a change of thought, how do you do to make the transition so fast and so natural?
Well, that like so much of an actor's job is almost done for you if the writing is really good, and if bad writing is really, really hard to act, and really the transitions are maybe where that shows up or can show up, the most, or can be the most glaring or the most obvious. I wish I had a more succinct answer for you, but I think it's just staying connected with the character, the material, with what you're, what it is you're after, and sometimes you need to provide that yourself with good writing or bad writing. Sometimes you need to find your own way to get from point A to point B if it's not a straight line, and that's just part of where your brain goes during that transition.
So, when you auditioned at the beginning of your career, did you allow yourself to go when you read a part, when you read the sides, and you didn't have the whole script and you didn't have the whole context, did you have confidence in yourself in terms of interpreting what it is? Did you worry whether the interpretation you took was something that the casting people are they're in a different
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, absolutely, and it is incredibly difficult when you get a set of sides, and some, whoever it is, a casting assistant, maybe, can answer a question or two. It, it, it's so hard to be a not yet successful actor, which whatever, it's as it should be. I mean, it's not whatever. It's like being an athlete or even just being sort of fit and taking care of yourself. I mean, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. So I think it's important to go through those sort of trials and tribulations. But that's certainly auditioning. God, it just blows, and the biggest transition for me because I auditioned, a couple years ago. I was auditioning a lot still, and may audition again, unless I do what's her name, Shelley Winters. You probably know the story, yeah. It's the most important thing. Two things that I learned in those situations, audition after audition. Just having some sides and having 30 seconds or a minute to make an impression on somebody, was to trust yourself, and to make a choice without concern of whether. Don't make the choice that you hope is what they're looking for. Right. Make the choice that you get from the writing, and again, even if you only have 2 pages, whatever, come up with a backstory, create, use yourself, and do your take on it, because trying to do what you think they want is you'll get a job once in a while, but people are looking for you to bring something, so bring it. Bring it.
Thank you very much for your time. I'll try not to sound like I'm doing any kind of repetition here. My question has more to do with momentum, like specifically the scene he was asking about earlier, where you came in and you were upset about the student that you said had died in a car crash. With all the multiple takes and everything going on around you, and especially with all of us learning this and having all these different techniques muddled in our head, what technique do you use to keep your momentum take to take with everything going on throughout like a 12-hour workday? Is there anything that you do specifically to help center yourself and to keep you in the moment?
No, not really. There's no specific thing. I mean, I don't like listen to music or sequester myself. I mean, sometimes I think one of the things that Miles and I talked about, and we talked about it at Q&As like this too, is that Damien managed to create a very sort of unself-conscious set. Relaxed. I mean, despite the ridiculous pace and the lack of experience and everything else. So oftentimes for a scene like that, if it's a scene where there's, crying going on, or people are getting naked, or, or there's just like really intense emotion, anger, whatever it is, people often will sort of tiptoe around and, let the actors prepare, and there will be, everybody must be silent because he's going to cry now, and it's just, it's, to me, counterproductive, and the day went along. I mean, there might have been a little less dicking around between takes of that, particular scene. But I'll tell you what, the thing that worked for me, well, a couple things. First of all, we didn't have time to do 11 takes, I mean, I don't know that we did more than 3 or 4 takes of any specific shot, maybe the slapping, that was fun. Because I just kept wanting one more. But what was awesome in that particular scene was, the times that I, obviously we had to do it more than once, was that, I'm looking out at this band, like roughly the first 2 rows here, And some of these guys are musicians that had almost no acting background at all. But I'm saying what I'm saying, and I'm saying it to these guys, and they were all just there, and giving, and that helped. You know, I could have done another 8 takes and picked a different guy to go to, and they were they were all there for me, and that's when the work is rewarding and beautiful. You know, when you feel like you're on a team, when you're working hard, when the camera's on them. Please do that.
Thank you very much.
You said that now suddenly you're a very popular actor, you get a lot of phone calls, a lot of scripts. So my question is, now that you get to be so picky about what you work on, what are you gonna do with that? How do you pick now your project, or is there a specific director or actor that you would like to work with?
Well, I've always tried to be picky. I've always tried to only do things that I found interesting, and there have been exceptions to that. And there have been choices that I made that were bad and stupid and wrong. But just the sheer volume of stuff that's coming at me, you know, not just since the awards, but really since the movie came out. I mean, it just really amped up a lot. So now it's largely a question of trying to maintain the balance, 2 kinds of balance. The balance between work and life, because as much as, you know, I love the work, and as much as, you know, almost everybody in this business and everybody who's striving to work in this business, you know, people use workaholic like it's a great thing, you know, and I strongly disagree. Work hard, you know, work hard, prepare hard, work hard, be prepared, but you know, have a life, so the, you know, finding I'm not trying to book myself, you know, 52 weeks for the next year. Having said that, there are a lot of opportunities coming, and because I do this for a living, and, you know, money is a helpful thing in the world.
After the $11 that you
you know, money is part of what a part of what motivates choices. So my goal now is to find that balance between doing big movies that I'm not just doing for the money. You know, I'm not doing anything that I'm disdainful of at all. And believe me, that crossed my mind when my agent called me and said they want to meet with me to do a new King Kong film. I was like, why? I just thought, why the hell would anybody do that? And then I met Jordan Vogt Roberts, who's a 20-something director who's done like one Sundance movie, and, you know, 20 minutes into the thing, and he's from Detroit. 20 minutes into it, I totally bought it because he's smart and passionate, and there's an actual reason. There are reasons to make the movie, to tell this different version of the story, and I can't tell you any of them. Anyway, the balance that I'm really working at finding now is to do the big movies, have a good time doing the big movies. I'm in the middle of a film right now in Atlanta with Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick and John Bernthal, John Lithgow, a lot of great people, called The Accountant. That's like a $40 million movie, which is big to me. I mean, it's not King Kong, but it's it's a big movie, and it's a wonderful, wonderful script, and Gavin O'Connor is a great director. Trying to find the balance between doing big movies, but still finding the little scripts, the little Whiplash scripts that are out there, that somebody's struggling to get made. And now, because I have a trophy, I can be the guy. There are two scripts that I'm fingers crossed, knock wood, one will get totally nailed down tomorrow, that are getting made because of me, because I'm able to attach myself to it, and that are beautiful. I mean, this first one is actually it's a comedy. It's kind of silly, but it's got that sort of indie sensibility, and it'll be $1.5 million to $2 million movie, and another one that's much more of a drama, sort of a chick flick tearjerker kind of a drama. But they're both wonderfully written movies, and movies that I want to do, and that my agent knows, I want to keep doing, and the double beauty of them is that now that I'm a big cheese, not only can I help them get their funding and help them get a movie made for $2 or $3 million, but I can say I want to do this in L.A. and they go, okay. Because I want to go home at night.
Home for dinner. See the kids. Help the kids with the homework,
Yes.
with the drumming.
I can't help them with their homework anymore. I encourage them.
Hey, you've already told us some of the key features that you feel a director needs to have. Looking back at the amazing career that you've had, are there specific instances where a director has helped you get a performance that you were struggling to have, or maybe even the opposite of that, where something he said or didn't work out for you? Could you give us either?
Oh, something I said that did not work out?
Either,
Yeah.
something that really helped or not.
Yeah. Two examples jump to mind. One was an off-Broadway musical in 1980-something, where I had sort of gotten to a point on stage where I kind of felt like, I know what I'm doing. I've did my Montana time. I was in Seattle at the Rep. I was, I'm Joe Pro theater actor, and I'm going to walk out here and, do my thing. And I came across a director, David Traynor, who's now directing multi-camera sitcoms really well, who just wasn't buying it. He was just like, yeah, that's all right, that's fine. But is that what we're after? Are we looking for fine? Dig in. If a B- works for you, great. But he just wouldn't accept my.
He was Fletcher.
No, because he didn't. He did it. He was a kinder, gentler, much kinder, gentler Fletcher. But just recognize that I wasn't working as hard as I could. That I wasn't digging deep. That I was just doing sort of whatever was easy, whatever was obvious. He and a guy named Jerry Zaks, who's a great theater director in New York, is another example. And Jason Reitman, I'll put in there too, as guys who are able to really direct and really communicate and keep a disparate group of actors. And it's so hard in film. It's hard enough in a play, but so much harder in a film to keep a disparate group of actors, actors who are, more and less experienced, who are maybe more from comedy, maybe more from drama, maybe more from improv, whatever, to just keep everybody on the same page, and to learn how to both express yourself and listen to what is being expressed, and treat each individual as an individual, and communicate with each person the way they need to be communicated with, and that to me is what separates an adequate director from a really wonderful director like a Jason Reitman.
Thank you.
Hi. Well, first I want to say thanks for being here tonight. It's an honor. I did want to tell you, I've been a fan of your work since I was 11 years old, and I started watching you in '97 when you were in Oz. So little, not very age appropriate back then, but I remember watching you and thinking to myself, because I wanted to be an actor back then, like, wow, this guy's incredible. So I've always watched your career. So it was great seeing you win the Oscars. So congratulations on that. But my question for you is, how did you really get into acting? Like, what was it that made you realize, this is what
I'm really passionate about. I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to go out there and have this career?
It was, I was studying music in college, and there were a couple things. That summer of playing Tommy Albright in Brigadoon was part of it. I had taken a quarter off from school because I had a professional engagement playing Figaro in The Marriage of Figaro with the Great Falls, Montana Opera Company for tens of dollars, and I was going to school in Missoula, Montana, at the University of Montana, and so I'd gone away. I'd done that gig, sort of standard, regional opera company opera, and I came home, and my little brother, who was still in high school at the time, was doing a musical with a local theater company. They're doing a production of Oliver, and a guy had just dropped out who played the knife grinder, who sings 4 or 5 lines and is in the chorus, and they the director said, "Does anybody know a guy?" And my brother said, "My brother might do it because he can sing," and I went and joined that production, and there was a guy who's still one of my best friends who was playing what's his name, the bad guy. My name Bill Sykes. And there was a scene where we're all in the chorus and we're having fun and doing whatever we're doing, and then Bill Sykes comes in and he's scary as hell and he's going to sing his big Bill Sykes number, and there's this really charged moment of him just inspiring fear in everybody, and we were rehearsing that number for the first time, and I was actually like having fun with whatever girl I assume I was goofing around with in the chorus, and then the music changes and Michael Morrison, my buddy, comes in and he's Bill Sykes, and it was like one of those goosebump moments where I was like, God, he just scared the shit out of me, and I thought, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. I want to be able to move people, and I embarked on this foolish path.
Thanks.
Eric, you want to ask a question? Oh, I thought.
How do you think the Tigers are going to do this season?
I think they're going to be good, but I think the rest of the division got better too, so it's going to be scary. But you heard it here first. Honestly, the coolest thing about being famous now, I'm throwing out the opening day pitch in Detroit.
All right! Dreams come true!
Yeah. I had lunch with Justin Verlander a couple of months ago, and I'm looking for him to have a big year. So there's your answer.
Okay, so I just want to tell you, for me, the scariest, the meanest thing that you did in the movie is when you said to the guy, he wasn't the guy that was out of tune, actually. You were, but he didn't know it. Oh my God, that was like amazing.
By the way, that was a dig at a friend of mine. I always try to get a character name that doesn't repeat through the movie, or even if it does, if I'm able to get there before the script supervisor, jumps on me. I always try to get names of my uncles, cousins, or old friends from the Big Fork Summer Playhouse in the movie, and I called that guy Erickson because one of my oldest friends is Dan. It wasn't Erickson in the script; it was something else.
So you try to make it home movies, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So guys, this is an example how you can go and make home movies of your own. And it's inspiring, and how if they achieved it, it's probably open field to everybody who wants to excel. Don't be afraid of the Fletchers of the world. Just go up there and be the Charlie Parker to the Fletchers. And I want to specifically thank you so much for coming here.